following podcast is brought to you on behalf of the Saracen Supporters Association and is not an official product of Saracens Limited. Content provided voluntarily by our guests and contributors are of their own opinion, which may change over time and should not be taken as fact, particularly as the podcast hosts are regularly talking drivel anyway. If you've got some drivel of your own you'd like to share, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at fezcast_SSA. You can search Facebook for the Fezcast, or you can email fezcast.ssa@outlook.com.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Fezcast. And just two of us in the hot seats tonight. Myself, Jez, and Barry is joining us, which is probably just as well, Barry, because in the first part we've got quite a bit to get off our chest. And let's be honest about it, I've got a bit of anger to get out of my system.
Yep, I think this is going to be, for those of us old enough to remember it, this is going to be a little bit like an episode of Father Ted, or rather I should say a cheap episode of Father Ted. It's going to be Feck, Arse and Jones, I should imagine.
Yeah, there is going to be quite a bit of that. Look, let's tell you what's coming up in the show, because it's not just me having a rant at Eddie, although there will be a little bit of that. We've got a brilliant interview that I have done with a returnee to the Fezcast, but Kelly Brown has joined us and just chatted about the season so far and done a little bit of a coach's review of what's been going on and how well and how happy they are with the season so far. And then we're going to look forward to the Saints game on the weekends with him, and also Europe and the break between Saints and Europe with the loss of the Worcesters and Wasps game. But yeah, I mean, plenty going on there. And obviously we've got Women's World Cup Final to discuss. And everything else is going on in the world of rugby. You okay with that, Barry?
Yep, absolutely. Let's go for it.
Well, shall we start with the international? Shall we get the annoying, the argument as if the Jez runs out of the way first of all?
Yeah, let's. I won't pose that question that I mentioned in the chat earlier on, just to sort of wind you up and point in the right direction. But Eddie Jones. So Jez, Eddie Jones, right man for the job?
I think I've started it on Twitter, the hashtag Eddie must go. And quite frankly, after the weekend, Eddie's got to go and he's got to take Ben Youngs with him. Honestly, it's just, you're looking at a team, and I've said this so many times in relation to England, but other teams as well. And you see it at the Premiership level with certain clubs. There's plan A, and if plan A doesn't work, he just sends them out and tells them to do plan A only better. He's a prescriptive coach who is blind to any sort of advice or comments from outside, who is wedded to this 10-12 axis of Smith and Farrell. And Ben Youngs, who, quite frankly, I've seen quicker traffic jams on the M25 than Ben Youngs at ruck time. I think someone put it, when JVB came on and replaced Ben Youngs, he did more in 25 seconds than Ben Youngs had done in the preceding 55 minutes in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably racked up more yards going forward in that one carry for the try than Ben Youngs manages in an entire season for England.
I mean, I've been on the social medias, and there's Tigers fans saying they're picking the wrong Tigers scrum half for England. And you've got Rafi Quirk, and you've got Alex Mitchell. I mean, in the same way, we'll mention some players who I have no idea what more they've got to do. Ben Earl and Elliot Daly at our club. I don't know what more Alex Mitchell has got to do to get in that England side at the moment. He's on fire. If I'm Eddie Jones, okay, I'm going to put myself in Eddie's place now. I am Eddie Jones. The first thing I would have done this morning was hand him a letter of resignation. But he won't do that because he needs to get sacked, so he gets the dosh. But, okay, he's staying. He's here for the Japan game. What's the first thing you do? Eddie, the first thing you do is you play players in their position. Maro Itoje has played the entire season at lock forward for Saracens. Pick him at lock forward. Owen Farrell is the best all-round 10 in the country, in the Northern Hemisphere, in the world. I don't care what anybody else is saying. And ruck.co.uk, their constant bullying of Owen Farrell on their social media is bang out of order. And then you pick on form. Manu Tuilagi's done nothing for Sale this year. Ollie Lawrence been brilliant. Elliot Daly been brilliant. Surely you go JVP, Farrell, Lawrence, Daly, Radwan, Cockersinger. I think Cockersinger's done well. Freddie Stewart. There's your back line. Sorted. Bang. Thank you very much. Give me £1 million a year and I could be Eddie Jones.
Yep, I would probably pay money to watch that side play. But yeah, whatever's going on with Eddie Jones, England have not been good since the semi-final in 2019, and it's not. You can't even see a direction of travel for them. And I suspect we're in for a long winter and a short World Cup.
Well, undoubtedly so. I think so. I mean, I put the joke out on Facebook the other day saying about apparently you can get 25-1 on Wales winning the World Cup, which for people who don't understand betting means if you put a tenner on Wales, you'll lose a tenner. Well, I think you can say exactly the same about England, only the odds will be slightly shorter. I really am looking at those international games and thinking, do I really want to watch them? Do I really want to have to put up with Amazon Prime freezing every 20 seconds to see a team? And then John, our colleague on the Fezcast, he was lucky he got free tickets to go to the game, but his tickets for him and his son, combined total of 150 quid for 2 tickets up in the gods at Twickenham. It beggars belief. I mean, what are the RFU? You want people to go and watch the game, and yet they allow a coach to destroy a brilliant generation of rugby players by coaching all the flair and skill and ambition out of them, and then you charge people ridiculous money to watch it. Something's going wrong there, isn't it?
Yeah, I saw something on social media this morning, and I'll repeat it as it was put. I've no idea if it's true because I haven't sat down and worked it out. But apparently you could take a family of 5 to watch the Red Roses next home game for the same money as it would cost you to go with one person at Twickenham. I'm assuming that's probably top price tickets, but...
I think I said in the chat, I said the last time I went, my ticket cost me 45 quid. And to give you an idea of how long ago it was, I coughed when I signed the cheque. And that was the point when I turned around and went, do you know what? This is just not on, is it? Because once you put in your train travel and a few beers, and I think Clive Woodward made the point, didn't he? He says not only was the entertainment on the pitch awful, it was spoilt by the people constantly getting up to either go and have a pee or go and buy another beer. Twickenham is just not a great place to go to watch international rugby, I don't think.
It's a shame. It is actually quite a decent stadium and the facilities are pretty good, but you're right. I mean, watching it on TV yesterday, there didn't seem to be an awful lot of atmosphere. And I spoke to someone who was there and he said it just seems flat. The crowd are waiting for the team to give them something to cheer, and the team are waiting for, I don't know what they're waiting for actually, but they don't seem to be waiting for very much at the moment. But it's just the whole thing seemed flat. I mean, I'm going to the South Africa game in 3 weeks' time, whatever it is. So it'll be interesting to see my first trip since prior to the pandemic. But yeah, I mean, that's not cheap. And if it's raining, I'm going to get absolutely soaked because I'm sitting on row 1.
I was going to say, have you won the lottery recently, Barry? They've not told us, but
they were the cheapest tickets I could get, mate. And I was determined to go because, I say, it has been a while since it was the Ireland game in 2020, just before the lockdown. So was the last time I went to see England. But it's a good day out. But yeah, it's not a cheap day out.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look, we talked about the backs quickly, and how I'd sort those out, and I think I did that pretty quickly. Forwards, one thing with the forwards, discipline. They've got to get themselves sorted. I don't know what's going on there. You've got people like Ellis Genge and Maro Itoje. I mean, Johnny Hill's not international class. Been him, he never has been. I've never raced him. Maro goes to lock. You bring in Ben Earl, you move Tom Curry over to the blind side. That's a pretty explosive back row there, with Billy doing what Billy does. but get them to be disciplined. Luke Cowan-Dickey throwing himself at people's feet, it's a red card waiting to happen. I'm sorry, and I blame his club coaches because that's how Exeter Chiefs are coached to make tackles. This chop tackle, it's dangerous, it's reckless, and I can easily see Chiefs in 10 to 15 years facing some lawsuits with players who've had to retire early because of the way that they've been coached to tackle. That's just my opinion. I'm not alleging it. That's what I see, but I could see there being a problem there. But Argentina were indisciplined but got away with it. England were indisciplined and didn't get away with it. When you got kickers like Farrell and the Argentinian lad who are just kicking them from everywhere, you really got to tighten that up. And I don't know, if you go to their clubs, they would not give away those penalties. They play in a white shirt. I mean, they're playing in whatever colour shirt it was this time. Sorry, excuse me. England playing white with blue socks, all right?
Well, not if they've got an alternate kit to flog.
No, well, again, it's all money, isn't it? And it's the old thing. Was it the Oscar Wilde thing? Is saying about people who know the cost of everything but the value of nothing.
This is very true.
No, right. I've got that off my chest. Is there anything else you want to add about England, Barry?
Just very quickly, and I did mention this in the chat earlier, the number of people blaming Owen Farrell for Marcus Smith's ineffective performance yesterday was frankly ridiculous. We've said it before on the podcast. Marcus Smith will be a great player, but at the moment he's not at international standard, and he's not in particularly good form for Quins either. He should not be there at 10. It should be Owen Farrell at 10. And if you're going to have a 10 with slow ball, don't blame the bloke outside him because it's got nothing to do with him.
Absolutely not. And I mean, I think the problem with Marcus Smith is that he is a bit of a one-trick pony, I'm afraid. The hop and the skip and the burst into space. He can do that at Premiership level, the international level, when you've got 15 seriously top quality players. That's easy to deal with. Yes, you're right. I mean, I think if he had a quicker scrum half inside him, like he does at Quins with Danny Kerr, I mean, Danny Kerr, for all what we say about the lad, he is one of the quickest scrum halves around. JVP is, he'd play outside Ivan Van Zyl, who we talk about with Kelly in our interview. Scrum halves with accurate, quick delivery, he would look good and he would get that opportunity. But at the moment, if he's going to go with Ben Youngs, you've got to put someone like Owen Farrell there who can take a hit and who can develop the ball out further. But quite honestly, you could put Dan Carter in his prime outside Ben Youngs at the moment, and he'd look like the Dog and Ducks third 15 standoff. He really would. Let's move on to the other internationals. Number one, very gritty from Ireland. Although I'm going to throw another little rant in because Rassie Erasmus has been up to his normal tricks of not saying anything but putting out videos. Obviously, you read between the lines and he's saying the referee got it wrong. No, just accept Rassie. Sometimes you're the statue and sometimes you're the pigeon. And South Africa got more than enough times of being the pigeon. Sometimes don't get away with it. But Ireland, very gritty. And again, if you're talking about coaches, how we've allowed Andy Farrell to be head coach at Ireland when we're in desperate need of an Englishman who knows what he's doing at the top of the English game, beyond me.
Well, funnily enough, when he was coaching England, I remember the dog's abuse he was getting because of the results and everything. So don't particularly blame him disappearing off to Ireland, but maybe we'll get him and Sean Edwards back because we've let both of them escape from us somehow.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, ridiculous, isn't it? So Wales and Scotland, they're going backwards at a rate of knots. I mean, I mentioned the joke about Wales and putting a tenner on, but I mean, I'm afraid to say, was it the Beast tweeted about Alan Wynne-Jones and said a great dancer knows when to leave the dance floor. And I think Alan Wynne-Jones should have left the dance floor about 3-4 years ago, but, keep on wheeling him out. Who is he, about 48 now?
He's nearly as old as me.
And no disrespect to you, Barry, he played like it too on the weekends.
I think he'll probably be quite upset with that, but I'll take that as a comparison. That's quite a comment. No, No, I didn't see much of that game, but Wales are not really at the top of their game at the moment until, of course, they play England, in which case they'll get a morale-boosting victory, I'm sure.
Yeah, undoubtedly so. The other interesting game was France-Australia. Australia should have really won that game, and you do have to look at that France side and thinking, 12 months out from a World Cup, have they peaked too early? I mean, they were scintillating in the Six Nations, but they seem to have taken a slight step backwards, I think.
Early season for all the Northern Hemisphere nations, and obviously the back end of the season for the Southern Hemisphere ones, so they're probably a bit more warmed up. But finding a way to win without playing particularly well is generally the mark of a good side, and I think France will be very difficult to stop come World Cup time.
Indeed. And the other thing was, obviously, we saw the Samoa-Italy game. Italy got a good win there against Samoa, but Theo doing Theo things, but getting hurt by the looks of things. Although, without giving too much away, I do ask Kelly about that in the interview. So hopefully there's some good news there. But yeah, that was interesting to see what went on there.
Yeah, we could certainly do with some good news on the injury front. They seem to be dropping like flies left, right and centre at the moment. But a good win for Italy. I mean, you kind of expect that from them. Who do they play next? Is it Australia?
I think it could be, yeah. Something like that.
That'll be a test for them. I'm just having a quick check online. Yes, Italy, Australia on Saturday. So that'd be an interesting game. Ireland have got Fiji.
Yes, very interesting. Should be it'd be quite interesting to see what happens there, and potentially another rant incoming afterwards as well when England play Japan. But let's move on to good news, Barry. The Women's World Cup. Did you get up early doors on Saturday morning?
No, I've admitted defeat. I've managed to get up early once, stay up late once, and so the New Zealand authorities thought, I'll get him. I'll stick it on right in the middle of the night where it's too late to stay up and too early to get up for. So I had to watch it on the ITV hub, which is does at least mean I can fast forward through most of the adverts. But what a game of the weekend that I saw anyway.
Yeah, out of all of the games, I thought, kudos to Canada. I mean, it was a little bit disrespectful for everybody to keep on turning around and saying Canada are amateur. They've got a lot of players in that side who are paid players. I mean, obviously, players that we know, Sophie Deguda, for instance, as well. I mean, but yeah, they really gave England a test, which I think Simon Middleton would be quite happy to have going into a final against the Kiwis.
Yeah, I thought that watching it as well. It's that they play in a not too dissimilar way to New Zealand from what I've seen of it, what I've seen of the Black Ferns, which is a huge amount. And they are clearly a physical side. And assuming we haven't punched ourselves out at the semi-final stage, which is something we can all relate to after last season, it will be a useful warm-up match if there's such a thing for a final.
Oh, absolutely. I will say, though, it really should have been France, I think, in the final. They were very unlucky against the Black Ferns. I think at one point I did sort of like tongue-in-cheekly said that somebody had a word with Joy Neville and reminded her where the final and where the tournament was being held, because I did feel that France got the rough end of quite a few decisions that could have gone either way. Have to feel sorry for the girl at the end taking the pot at goal. You know, these things happen. You can't define that. The fact that France was so close. I mean, they really did put a performance, and again gave New Zealand one hell of a shock and a hell of a run out.
Yeah, and backs up our result against France as well, because we were all sort of saying, oh, we haven't played that well, but France are a very tenacious side. They don't give up. They keep going to the end. And yeah, that kick was, I'm not familiar with her kicking style, but it looked to me like she rushed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's saying that she's been dead-eye dick throughout the tournament, which she has. And then suddenly the one where the pressure comes on, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the pressure, it takes a very special type of person. If you've never been in that situation to be able to do that, I mean, you know, if it was Owen Farrell or Alex Good even, or, you know, Emily Scarrett, you're sat there going, yeah, 99 times out of 100, they're going to slot that. Whereas the girl, obviously, it's her first opportunity of doing that. I just hope that she comes back from it, because she's obviously a special talent, as are many of those French girls. And, it's good for the game of women's rugby that there are 4 or 5 top quality nations performing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have got the top 4 ranked nations in the world in the semi-finals, and that's obviously a good thing and good the way the tournament's worked out. I'm sure she'll be back. She'll go away. She'll work on that, and next time she'll hopefully just be able to drown out the crowd, who weren't particularly respectful from what I saw of it. And she'll just take her time and make that the last kick of the game.
I have to say, it's something you get from in New Zealand. The people listening in can't hear, but can't see, obviously, but I'm wearing my Waikato Chiefs T-shirt tonight. And I remember going out to being in Hamilton and watching Auckland Blues against Waikato Chiefs when I was out there in New Zealand a few years ago. And it amazed me that behind the posts was a bloke with a mullet hairdo in a cherry picker with a chainsaw, and every time the kickers came up to take a kick, and the chainsaw would go. And so you obviously have different levels of respect. The final's going to be great, though. I think New Zealand have got a lot of flair outside. Portia Woodman and Ruby Tui. Whereas England have got a pack that really, if they get on top, and I think this is what England will hope to do, is they're going to keep this one tight and use their strengths and just, I think, stop the ball getting out to those speedsters out wide for the Black Ferns.
Yeah, my fear on that is that they're going to come under all sorts of media pressure this week, because we know what they're like down there, and it's already started, I think, during the tournament. They'll be criticised. They'll be getting dogs abuse from everyone in the media about their style of play and the fact that they're forward orientated and their catch and drive and all that sort of thing. And it'll be the purists against the hooligans sort of thing in the media. And I just hope they don't get talked out of their game plan. We're very good at what we do. And at the end of the day, there's never been a scorecard made that has room for comments. So it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It's winning the game that counts on Saturday.
Well, absolutely. And I think it's a bit unfair to just, for the media over there to denigrate the women's team as just being this big lump of forwards. Abby Dow's try on the weekend was an absolute thing of joy and beauty.
Yeah, I mean, I knew what was happening, and even so, I was still screaming, "Kick it out, for crying out loud! What on earth are you doing running it from there?" But they never laid a hand on the 2 wingers as they ran it back.
Yeah, absolutely amazing stuff. A lovely pass from Claudia McDonald out, so Abby Dow, superb stuff. But that's something to look forward to on the weekends. Let's have a break here now, and then we'll come back in a minute with and dissect the game at Ashton Gate where we baited some bears, I think is best to say.
You're listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracens Supporters Association, and I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the Stonex.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, welcome back to the next part of this edition of the Fezcast with me, Jez and Barry. And as I said before the break, time to talk about the game at Ashton Gate down in Bristol against the Bears. First thing I've got to say is I was very, very disappointed in the Bristol performance. I thought they were, quite frankly, clueless up until Harry Thacker came on. and just turned around and got a grip of the line out and the maul and said, "This is what we're going to do. We're going to actually throw some punches at Saracens," because up until then they hadn't thrown a punch.
No, they'd pretty much gone two plays and kick it downfield, and that was. I don't know what the game plan was, but it certainly needed to change earlier than it did. And when they did start to play, they asked us some questions. I think we'd taken our foot off the gas a little bit by then, but if they played like that from the start, it could well have been a different game.
Well, absolutely. I think, I've written down here, Sarries really never got out of second gear, really. I mean, they didn't have to. We got down into their 22. Bristol would give away a penalty. Goody'd step up. Thank you very much. 3 points. Off we go. One bit of magic from Max. Beautiful bit of magic. And, that's going to cheer up the Bristol Bears fans, knowing that that's coming to them next season. But, yeah, other than that, Goody rolled back the years again and showed all the composure that comes from playing 17,000 times and did the business. And, yeah, it was nice to see that we could go through a game like that in second gear without exerting too much, without having to worry too much about injuries or anything like that. Yes, the weather conditions were atrocious, but I don't see that really as an excuse. I mean, Kelly mentions it in the interview, which is coming up in a minute. But I will throw in. I watched the Rugby League on Saturday afternoon, England versus Papua New Guinea, where for 30 minutes in absolute dreadful weather in Wigan, England's Rugby League team were absolutely superb. It didn't matter that it was wet weather. I always think this wet weather side of things is a little bit of a misnomer. Yes, the ball's going to be slippy. You just tailor your game, and Saracens tailored their game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the forwards were immense on Saturday. It was always good. It almost looked like a penalty every time we scrummed down. We were always seemed to be quite dominant. I know there's been a lot of talk on the Bristol social media about the referee. I don't think he got too much wrong from what I could see. But we just looked in control. It would have been nice to have launched the backs a little bit more than we did, but we did more than enough to get the points. And all right, we left a point out there. Hey, can't be perfect.
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the referee. Was it Jack Makepeace, wasn't it? I thought he was excellent. Really was good. I mean, it's easy to say from the point of view of being the victors, and refer us back to the Rassie Erasmus thing. Whenever South Africa win, he's happy. He never mentions the referees. If you lose, you're going to mention the referees. I thought he was excellent. The Saracens, for an inexperienced front row, and particularly Theo Dan, who I think has really stepped up in the last 2 or 3 weeks, they started presenting a picture to the referee that the referee wanted to see. I think there was Robin Hislop got penalised early doors and absolutely changed what he was doing. Absolutely fantastic. It's good to see Bomber back at the club as well. He's a good, solid pro there, and he'll do a good job for us. But yeah, I mean, for a youthful front row, they worked out pretty quick what the referee wanted to see, and they did it. I think a lot of that comes from having a top quality leader. And again, I mentioned this with Kelly about Ben Earl. A couple of games ago when he was announced as captain, we all sort of were a little bit surprised, I think. The fact of the matter is they've obviously identified something from him, and he's absolutely brilliant in that captaincy role.
Yeah, he looks like a player who's got quite a lot of control, as he's quick and he's fast and he's powerful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point you make there. I just think, he's, when you look at the other players around him, you've got Jackson Ray on the side, you've got Goody, you've got Elliot Daly, all players with a lot more experience than him. The fact that he can step up and be that leader, and those senior players, those generals follow him, it's great. And I mentioned it to Kelly, and it's interesting what Kelly's comment is, but I'm saying Ben signed a big contract with us. He's been given this leadership role. Are we looking at the future of Saracens? You're looking at a lot of players who will be coming towards their end of their career. Ben's obviously the one who I would imagine will move into being our marquee player within the next couple of seasons, quite possibly. And are they looking at the succession from Owen Farrell to Ben Earl? I certainly, on the evidence of the last 2 games, I would have no problem with that happening at all.
No, it looks like it may well be going that way. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, obviously, Owen will be a huge set of boots to fill. And I almost pity anyone who's got that role of trying to fulfill the Owen Farrell role, because he's been such a leader for us on the pitch, on and off the pitch. I mean, it's noticeable if you're at a game, if you watch at half time, Mark McCall goes off talking to Owen Farrell. He doesn't go off talking to anyone else. He doesn't go off talking to his coaches. He doesn't disappear straight down the tunnel either. He goes to the side of the pitch and walks off talking to Owen Farrell every game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was great. As I say, we've now got an interview which I've enjoyed doing with Kelly Brown, and we are going to discuss an awful lot of stuff. His recent injury, comparing cars to Jerome Kano, is the next one, and the embarrassment he feels about not damaging the car enough. And then we're going to talk about the season and everything that's going on and a few of the players. So that's coming up now after a word from one of our advertisers.
Hi guys, I'm Alex Linton and I'm a proud Looseheads ambassador.
I'm Sydney Gregson and I'm a Looseheads ambassador.
We're a rugby mental health charity working to tackle the stigma. You can find us at Looseheads on all social media channels or at looseheads.co.uk.
The Looseheads mission is to place a mental health lead at every rugby club. Get in touch now to find out more. Take care and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Enjoy the rest of the pod.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, I'd like to welcome back to the Fezcast for his second appearance as a guest on the pod. Saracens coach, all-round good guy, Kelly Brown. Thanks, Kelly, for joining us. Hope you are well.
Hi, Jez. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And it's great to be here.
Well, I mean, you say you're good, Kelly. Obviously, the big news over the summer was you taking on a car on your bike and I suppose finding out that perhaps running into the likes of Jerome Kano or whoever is not quite as bad as you perhaps thought back then.
Oh, definitely. So it was actually, it was 13 weeks ago and I was cycling home and I was going down a hill and at the same time a car was coming up the hill. I saw the car. Unfortunately, it didn't see me. And so as I was going down, it just turned in front of me. And so I smashed into the side of the car, went flying over the top. I managed to, I cut my knees, I cut my face open. I broke my nose again. And the big thing was, it was my kneecap, so fractured a kneecap. And so that's the thing. It's the thing that's taken a bit of time, but I'm getting there, and on the plus side, I'm sort of I'm alive because my helmet had a crack in the middle of it, and so it could have been a lot worse.
Well, undoubtedly so, and a yellow card for a no arms tackle, no doubt as well.
Well, yeah. Well, I was just saying I didn't actually see the car afterwards because I'm on the floor and the car sort of stopped, and anyone asked if I damaged the car. I said, well, I certainly hope so because I felt like it braced into the contact. So I would hope it's done a bit of damage, or else I'll be incredibly embarrassed.
Well, it's good that you're on the road to recovery. That's the main thing. But what must be helping the recovery is a great start to the season for Saracens. 8 from 8. I've mentioned it on the Fezcast in previous weeks. You know, it's like watching Ronnie O'Sullivan when he's potted 7 reds and 7 blacks. You're suddenly thinking, is something special going to happen this year? I mean, without getting too cocky, you've got to be happy with a 100% start to the season.
Oh yeah, it's been a good start. We don't as a coaching group, as a squad, as a club, we don't look sort of too far ahead. I think all in all, yeah, we're we're fairly upbeat, with how things are going. We feel especially our attacks improved over the course of this year, which is good. But we need to keep on working, because it's the sort of league. As soon as you think you've cracked it or it's easy, you get caught. And so we're just working on sort of every day, just getting better as individuals, but also as a team. And if we do that, let's just see what happens.
Well, obviously, yeah. I mean, I think that's a great attitude to take. I mean, there are moments throughout this season where we've been watching, whether it's been at the ground or on the TV or Premiership Rugby TV, Leicester performance was just absolute top dollar. I don't think there would be a team in rugby, international or domestic, I said it at the time, that could have coped with the intensity and the ability and the accuracy that we brought to that game. I mean, as you say, we're bringing in but developing an attacking sense of flair to our performances as a club. But, surely it's the accuracy when it works that's most pleasing, I would have thought.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the big thing that as a group we've been speaking about is just doing the right thing at the right time. And seasons gone by, it's certainly, if you go back, 8 or 9 years, it was always sort of in our half. So we look to exit and we look to kick, and then we chase and we defend off the back of that. I think now it's sort of gone to right, what's on. And so the players, we're very fortunate. We've got some unbelievable players, and we back them. To ultimately, to make a choice and to make a decision. And if it's on, it's like, okay, well, let's play. It doesn't matter where it is. If it's on and you think it's on, let's have a go.
Well, absolutely. I like to talk about some of the players. And I mean, I know you as a coaching team are quite reticent to single out individuals, because it is a team effort and it's a team ethos. And Mark McCall, when he was interviewed on Bears TV prior to the game on the weekend, he mentioned Theo Dan, who I think has really stepped up, particularly with Jamie George's injury. But, we're waxing lyrical at the moment about Magic Theo McFarland. I mean, I personally said it, and I don't know how you feel. You get to see him in training every day and on the field. I've not been as excited about a player in world rugby since the days of Jonah Lumen. I think this guy's got it all.
That's a big show. That's a big show.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're both old back rows, Kelly. I mean, when he plays blindside, I mean, he's doing stuff that we would never have dreamt of doing as back row players ourselves, surely.
I think we're just where we are. I think impressed with him is I think his improvement over the last sort of 16, 17 months, since he came in. He came in here with the basketball skills, and his hand-eye is like, I've never seen another player with the sort of hand-eye coordination that he's got. But he was fairly raw, and I think he'd admit that in terms of the rugby, in terms of the technical skills, he was pretty raw. And then would speak to him and that sort of stuff. And he's quite a quiet guy. He's very quiet. He's very shy. And you speak to him and feed back to him, and you weren't sure if he was taking it on board.
Yeah.
But then he'd go out in the next session, in the next game, and he'd do it. And so that's the big thing. I think it's just the improvement and the ability that he seems to have, to learn, and his improvement over the last 16 or 17 months has been great to see. But I still think there's so much more in him, and that's the exciting part, is to see where he can go over the coming sort of weeks and months and years.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've been having this debate on the Fezcast between all of us who present it about where we see him playing, and a couple of the guys are determined that he should stay in the second row. Some think, I personally think he would make an absolutely amazing number 8 with his handling skills and his vision and everything like that. And I might have mentioned it on the Fezcast a couple of times. I played number 8 a fair few times in my career. So, that's what I say. And then you got Austin Healy, who thinks he should be playing on the wing, which is, an interesting point of view. But, I mean, we're really excited to see how he develops.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the beauty is because he can really play anywhere from 4 back in the scrum. So he can play in the second row. He can play in the back run. That's the beauty. With the salary cap as it is now, it's important, to have these players that can play in a number of different positions. And so with Theo, we've certainly got that. He's shown he can play in the second row and play well. He's shown he can play in the back row and play well. It would be a big shout, to stick him out on the wing. But if we get a couple of injuries, then who knows?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned that versatility in relation to the salary cap. It brings me on to the next two players that I think have had an exemplary start to the season and very unlucky, I think, not to be included in England's international plans at the moment. And we'll have discussed that earlier on, given the result against Argentina. And those who do listen to the Fezcast regularly will know that I'm not exactly Eddie Jones's biggest fan, but I mean, that's a different part. And we won't ask you about that, Kelly. But Elliot Daly, Ben Earl, two players with versatility in their bones. And Ben plays across the back row. Elliot plays 13, 14, 15. They've had great seasons. And I think, what more do they have to do to get international recognition again?
I think all they can do is keep on playing well. And then ultimately it's up to the coach, to pick them. We know that at Sarries and Four Sarries this year, they've been playing unbelievably well. I think if you look at Elliot, I think it's the best he's played in a number of years. He's been unbelievably sharp in attack. He's been solid in defence, and he's been banging over kicks from 60 metres. And so, what a brilliant, what a weapon, to have in our team. And then Ben Earl, again, has shown back row incredibly good over ball, but also incredibly fast. And so his attacking game, he can get on the shoulder of things, he can finish things off. And on top of that, if you actually watch him, is the amount of energy and the amount of buzz that he brings to the team. If you hear it's the ref's mic on the side of a scrum, he brings so much energy and so much buzz, to the front row and to the tight five. And so he's just been brilliant. I would say that both of them have been great over the course of the season. I hope, because we always want our guys to achieve individually as well as a part of a team. So it's hopefully, if they keep on playing well, at some point they'll be given an opportunity.
The interesting one there is Ben, in so much as that a couple of weeks ago when Goody's record-breaking game came out at StoneX, the internationals were all away. Owen was injured or on his concussion stand down. Yeah. And I must admit, I think to a lot of people, we were quite surprised when the announcement was made that Ben was going to be the captain. When you looked at the senior players around, players with perhaps a bit more Premiership experience, but he stepped up and he's looked to the manner born as a skipper. I mean, is that something, one, that Mark, Joe, yourself have seen in him as his next stage of development? And two, are we looking at the future of the club there, given that he's just signed a new contract as well that's going to keep him at the club for the foreseeable future?
So we're very lucky at the club that we've got a number of leaders, a number of generals. We've got guys that have captained the team. If you look through the side, as you said, there's a number of guys who've captained the team at various points. But Ben's also, he's sort of youngish, and he if you go back a couple of years, he captained the team in the Prem Cup, and so he was involved in that as well. So he does have a bit of captaincy experience. In terms of saying, is he the future of the club? I think he is. I don't know if he's going to be the captain in the long term, like he may be, but he's a young player now who is breaking through and who's really improving all the time, and it's very exciting. Him alongside sort of likes of a Theo, these youngish guys. It's exciting to see where they can go.
Oh, absolutely. And we've been, as I say, hugely impressed. Not too many bad things to be said from the fans' point of view. There's the odd thing. Nobody's ever perfect. One person we do think has stepped up this year brilliantly is Ivan at scrum half. Yep. His speed at ruck it must be a joy to play standoff outside him, knowing how quickly that ball is coming to you.
Oh, definitely. He's had a great year. He's played a lot. which always helps. As a 9 or 10, you want to play a lot of minutes, a lot of games. You want to try, if you can, to get a run of games. And sort of with the unfortunate injury to Alid, he's played a lot, which has been great for him. As you've seen, he's looking like he's settled in the team. As you said, his service is good, his kicking is good, and defensively, it's amazing. He's obviously a 9, but he's a fiery, aggressive little bugger. And if you watch him, like, he throws himself into the tackles as well, which is always, as a forward, I like to see a 9 that's sort of got a bit of edge to him as well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you must have played with a few of them in your career. I mean, I remember obviously Neil de Kock was one who was playing well above his weight class, as it were. And I mean, so absolutely fantastic to see. And again, we wanted to mention as well, other youngsters are coming through. We've mentioned Theo Dan. Callum Hunter-Hill's having a bit of a good run at the moment, and really looking to cement a place in that squad.
Oh, he is, and it's been a really good chance, for Callum over the last few weeks, because we've got a bit of strength in the second row, obviously. And he's got a run of games, and I know when he wasn't playing, he was keen to play, and he wanted an opportunity, to play and to show sort of what he could do. And I think over the last sort of month or 6 weeks, I think his performances have sort of been getting better and better and better, and it's now up to him to make sure he keeps on pushing. And so when guys, they do come back from sort of international duty, he wants to be in the team, and he wants to be a first choice. And that's really, as a coach, it's what you want, is you want guys that are pushing and are making it hard to actually pick a team.
Well, obviously the next things to talk about, though, is new recruits. And we've seen a few names come in the door. Good to see Bomber coming back to the club. He was, like Christian Judge, someone who had a spell with us, and perhaps, we were slightly disappointed when he moved on, but now he's come back. There's an awful lot of players out there on the market with, the sad news about Wasps and Worcester, and we've picked up a couple, Kitchener as well, and is Mark McCall and Joe Shaw knocking on Nick Kennedy's door and saying, look, these are a couple of players we need to look at. We wouldn't mind a bit of cover here. Can we do something within the financial constraints?
Absolutely. So those three and Phil are speaking all the time. There are obviously with sort of what's happened at those two clubs, which is incredibly sad to see, and no one wants to see it. But there are sort of all of a sudden a lot of players out there and a lot of players available. And I know that Nick and Mark and Phil are sort of looking at sort of all of the options, all of the permutations, because we're always keen, to add a bit of quality to the squad as and when, we can.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it'd be good to see when the players come in. But obviously, this is a period of time during the season when we are shorn of quite a few players. And I think it's 7 that's been announced by Eddie Jones in the England squad. We lose Nick Tompkins. KP was fit. He'd be off with America. Ruben Haas is off with the US team. Obviously, Theo McFarlane played for Samoa. Any news on the injury that he seems to pick up, scoring another wonder try on the weekend? Do we know?
I've not had anything official from the medics, but we were just having a bit of a chat about it today, and I got told he was okay. But it's not official. But I'm certainly I'm hoping he's okay.
Well, hopefully by Wednesday when this goes out, then we will have that announcement. But it's really important. Obviously, you see players go away on international duty. How difficult is it for you to watch those players going away, knowing that they're going to perhaps get different coaching, different emphasis on ways of playing? Particularly if you look at England at the moment, it seems to be a completely different mindset to how Saracens are wishing to play the game. You got Maro Itoje and Owen Farrell basically playing out of position, or where they've not, they're playing in positions that they haven't played for the entire season so far. Is it a frustration? Is it an issue? Is it a worry? Or are you in conversation with the various international coaches about the players and their welfare and how well they're doing?
And so I know that Mark is, and so Mark will speak to the various coaches. In terms of being difficult, I would say it's a challenge, obviously, when players go away, but sort of one, we've got a fair idea that it's probably coming, with a lot of them, is we know they're going to be away. And two, as I said to you earlier, is we want our players to achieve what they want to achieve individually as well. And so sort of any time there's an international window, all of the players go, with our hope, they go there and they play well and they enjoy it and they have a bit of success. So it's a challenging period, but at the same time, we're very, very proud of all the guys that actually get picked.
Absolutely. Well, that's the main thing. Just wanted to pick up, we mentioned Theo in injury. A couple of injuries out there, in particular at hooker. We seem to be dropping hookers. Jamie George has been included in Eddie's 36-man squad. Presumably he's nowhere near ready to play, but it's just there for being part of the squad and being kept part of the England framework, I'd imagine. I mean, any news on how soon Jamie is for a return to play in action?
I think he's not far off, but but I'm not exactly sure of the timeframes. But he's not far off. I would imagine this week will be too early, but he's not far off. I know that much.
That's excellent news. Well, perhaps we'll finish up by talking about the future and what's coming up immediately, then midterm, and then long term. Immediate thing is, got Saints at home. They're on a bit of a run at the moment. They're playing some good rugby. They're not missing too many internationals. Picks up Finn Smith, who seems to have hit the ground running for them at 10, with Dan Bigger moving over to France. I mean, that's a fair old swap, I think, there, that they've done well.
Yep.
What's the focus on this week in one, how we impose ourselves upon Saints, and two, how we deal with what Saints are doing to other teams in the league?
Yeah, I think the thing that's impressive about Saints, you've touched on that they've got a style, they like to throw the ball around and they like to play a bit. And there's certainly been a couple of games, they've cut some teams to shreds. If you look at the Bristol game a couple of weeks ago, so they scored a load of points in that one. But what impressed me was actually their win on Friday against Exeter. So that was a real slog, a real sort of a grind out sort of performance. And they were able to do that against a good team. So they seem to be growing as a side. And so it's going to be tough. That being said, we were sort of fairly happy on Saturday after the Bristol game, with again sort of how we ground it out. It wasn't pretty. It was almost like an old school sort of Sarries game. It was based on the set piece and the kicking game and a lot of incredibly hard work off the ball. And we were happy with that. And so the guys have had a day off today, and then we'll come in tomorrow and get a plan in place and look to get into Saints, because if we sit off them, they are very, very dangerous. So we need to make sure that our plan is good, to get up at them and to stop them playing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's an interesting point you make there. I mean, is there an element that a lot of the clubs have looked at the start that Saracens have made, and you put 50 points on the reigning champions, get an element of revenge, shall we say, for the final the year before, and then suddenly our teams trying to, it appeared that way when we went down to the Chiefs on Sandy Park, that they want to drag Saracens into a bit of a dogfight, a bit of a war. Hand-to-hand brawl almost. There's a bit of niggle in that Chiefs game. You saw Bears on Saturday seemed content to put the ball up and challenge. Is that something that you get the impression that clubs are trying to negate what we are trying to do in our expansive play by getting us into a bit of a dogfight?
Well, as you'd expect a team to do. So if a team has got a good attack, you want to get into them and try and slow them down and try and stop them playing. But I think also in the Exeter and the Bristol game, I think the weather has been a factor in both those games. The Bristol game, certainly, it was a horrible night and it was incredibly difficult to actually play any rugby. And that's the other factor, is we're going into the winter now, and it's not so easy, to launch a massive pass if the wind and rain is coming in at a 45-degree angle. It just becomes a lot more difficult to play. But that's where, as I said to you, I think on Saturday, we were pretty happy because the conditions weren't there, for us to play and to really play in the style that we played at the start of the season. But it was good to see we could adapt, and we did that well.
Oh, absolutely. I think I said at the time, Kenny, it was a game to play in rather than to watch. And as I say, as a kind of gnarly old back rows, I think we would have enjoyed that. I just said that the trouble is in these games, there's a lack of mud these days, isn't there? You don't get the mud like you used to. It's the good pitches and the fast pitches. They kind of finished my career because the game got a bit too fast. I like the swamp. Like you get a fog and it slows all the fast and skillful people down, and that's perfect for me. Absolutely, yeah, that's certainly it. Now, next up, though, obviously Saints. We finished that game, and then we've got a bit of an enforced layoff with Worcester and Wasps no longer there. Going to have a couple of weeks at least without much competitive rugby, other than the guys who are out on international duty, before we hit the European season. What's the plans at the club to keep the lads on top form, or is it going to be taking opportunity to give them all a bit of a rest, a bit of R&R, a bit of time off, just to spend some time with families and recharge? It will have a bit of a break, but I know the club is still exploring options, to try and get a game in one of those 2 weeks. So we're looking at it, and as soon as we've got anything sorted, it'll hopefully be announced. But it's something, as I said, that the club are actively seeing if we can do that. Oh, that'd be great. I mean, obviously, if they can do something, I know there's been talk of the Barbarians playing everybody and anybody, which would be fantastic to see at StoneX. But yeah, Europe though coming up, it's a tough group. It's our first year back after a couple of years enforced from the top table of Europe. I mean, everybody, I assume, is looking forward to reacquainting themselves with some old foes, going up and playing on the top table again. Yeah, I think it's just exciting. As you said, I think everyone's just sort of excited to be back at the top table. As you said, it's a tough group, as it always is in the Champions Cup. Really, there's a lot of good teams in it, but we're excited to actually go and test ourselves. And I think motivation is high, and so we're excited to go and see where we are. As we said earlier, we feel the start to the Premiership has been okay, but it's definitely a step up as you go into Europe, and so it'll be a proper test for us to see where we sit. Well, absolutely. I mean, I suppose the last question I asked you, I mean, how much? I mean, we touched briefly on the fact that last year we got to a final. Perhaps don't know how much we were expected to get to the final in the Premiership. I mean, it was a bit of uncharted coming back up as we did. Europe, we were in the lower competition. I think there was a greater expectation from the fans. Mm-hmm. That perhaps that was a competition that we could really focus on and perhaps get some silverware from. Unfortunately, came up a little bit short. Mm-hmm. How much of that is a motivation this year to actually, just step up a little bit further, or is, going up another competition just a case of let's have a bit of dose of reality? What we get here is a bit of a bonus, and we will do our absolute best. But obviously, Saracens is a club that doesn't enter competitions with the intention of doing anything but winning. So we'll be going after both of them. We always, as you said, we go into every single game, with a focus to actually win it. We don't as a club, we don't tend to set any goals.
we never really have is we just go out there, to do our best sort of week on week, and then let's see where it takes us. As you said, it's exciting to be back into the top tier of Europe. We've done well in it before, and it'd be great if we could get into the knockout stages, and then let's just see what happens. But first things first, and so we've got a game, a couple of games over the next 2 weeks, and then sort of maybe a bit of a break, and then into Europe. So we can't afford to, as a group, we can't afford to look too far into the future, and we'll not be doing that. We'll literally be focusing sort of game on game.
Oh, absolutely. Well, brilliant. Thank you ever so much for that insight into it. Before I go, though, one last thing. I need a message from you for my co-host and co-producer on the Fezcast, Matt, who has a problem has come to light with Neil Diamond, and in particular, one particular Neil Diamond song.
Yeah,
and I'm finding it very incomprehensible that he's been dissing Neil Diamond's music. So, I mean,
really?
Yeah, I know. I mean, he did point out that you're a bit of a Bon Jovi fan as well, Kelly, which is a band that does leave me a little bit cold. But I mean, Neil Diamond is great, isn't he? Surely, it's a great song.
Yeah, I don't see his problem. He sounds like a Grinch. He sounds like he's a Grinch. He obviously, yeah.
Yeah, well, look, as I say, we should all be at the game on the weekend. So if we grab you, then you can have a chat with Matt, and we'll
chat to him and just put him right.
Yeah, absolutely, put him right. And I mean, as I say, we'll just gloss over the Bon Jovi stuff and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly. No problem.
But Kelly, thank you ever so much for your time. As I say, give our best regards to everybody at the club, as we always ask. And thank you again for being a guest on the Fezcast with us and giving us insight into what's going on with the club and the coaching and everything. It's been absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure everybody listening in will enjoy the conversation we've had.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, and thank you very much for asking me on again.
Not a problem, Kate. Anytime, anytime, you're more than welcome to join us on here.
That's very kind. Okay, thanks a lot, mate.
Cheers, Ed. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Jez.
This is the Fezcast.
Hi, this is Jez from the Fezcast to tell you about another one of my passions. I love music, and I have my own radio podcast station, Tarka Blowpig Radio. This is the home of great music presented by myself and my friends, be it folk, rock, indie anthems, progressive music, you name it, we've got it covered. So if you want to listen to some great music, tune in to us at mixcloud.com/Tarka Blowpig.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, welcome back to our final part of this week's episode of the Fezcast. And yeah, what a great interview that was with Kelly Brownbarry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to get some insight from inside the camp, as it were. But Kelly's a top bloke, and we're very lucky to have him back from Edinburgh. Yes,
indeed. I think it's quite funny the embarrassment he feels about not writing off a car.
He'll just have to find a smaller car next time.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, it's great as well. And talking about, as we did before the interview, talking about Ben Earl as a potential leader and a leader going forward. Interested to hear his points of views on that. Good to hear that, although it's not official, Theo seems okay after his knock against Samoa, and looks like Jamie George, who's been included in the England camp this week, is not far off of recovering and getting back in. Although, given the way that Theo Dan's playing, I mean, it's not a shoe-in for that hooker shirt, is it?
No. Hopefully Tom Wollstonecroft's back, I think, beginning of December, did someone say? So he'll probably be missing this game and the Tigers game, and then we haven't got another game for about 3 months. So
yeah, absolutely. And as we mentioned to Kelly, and we talked about to Kelly, that how are the club going to fill that? They're looking at doing something, so that we'll keep our eyes on the social media there, and hopefully something will come up to give them a game before Europe. But in the meantime, we do have Saints coming to town, marching in on Sunday, early kickoff, 12:15 kickoff. Saints on a bit of a roll at the moment, looking good, playing some expansive rugby, as Kelly pointed out in the chat. You know, Bristol Bears should have been a difficult test for us with our internationals away on duty, but I think this is going to be a big test, isn't it, this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've got a reasonably experienced pack as well if they want to play all their big guns. And as we mentioned earlier, Mitchell at 9 is going to give us a big test. We're going to need to step up for that. The only thing I will say is they don't much like that plastic pitch that we've got, so we might have a little ace up our sleeves there.
Absolutely. And I think just about all of us are going to be at StoneX on Sunday. So we may, I mean, it depends on whether I can work out the technology or whatever. We may be able to do a little bit of a Fezcast recording at the ground. But if you are at the ground and you want to come and throw some abuse or advice our way, then you're more than welcome to. We'll be in the Oasis at some point during the day, no doubt, because meeting in person would be nice for a start. I mean, we all need to meet each other in person, as it were, but also, you know, all of you listeners, please do come along to Oasis and tell us what you think of us, good or bad. We prefer the good, you know. I mean, I'm driving, so don't buy me a pint, but I mean...
Yeah, I think my mate's driving because there's no Thameslink trains on Sunday from here, so we've got a bit of a mission to get in, but we should get there hopefully and be around for one or two afterwards. I think Matt's quite keen to do a Neil Diamond cover version as well, if we can get the karaoke mic off the off the bloke.
As we said in Kelly's interview, I mean the Kelly's with me on this one, the incomprehensible version that Matt has to Neil Diamond's. You know, if we can catch Kelly, he'll come over and set Matt right, I think.
Yeah, he can give us a few singing lessons, I think.
Absolutely. You don't want to hear me singing. You heard that when I tried doing a poor old Tony Rowe the other week, didn't you? Barry, thank you ever so much for your time tonight. It's been an absolutely brilliant conversation. Got a few things off our chest vis-a-vis England. But yeah, and thanks to Kelly for joining us, and thanks to Ollie at Saracens for organising that. As I say, next week is the Saints game. I think Matt, Joe and John will be taking the reins next week, and hopefully we'll have some news on a guest for the show as well. So that's all to look forward to. Keep your eyes open on the social medias. But until then, all remains to say is thanks for listening, everybody. All the best, and ta-ra. See you on Sunday.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and look forward to catching up soon.
Cheers, then.
This is the Fezcast.